Okay, let's talk about the Arsenal on St. Peter's Street. Now, if you're a local, you've walked by this place a bunch of times, just kind of on your way to and from Jackson Square or Cafe Du Monde, maybe heading over, heading up the Patos as you walk up St. Peter's Street, or just going to Le Petit Theater, whatever. You've walked past the Arsenal, and you probably didn't realize that there's a really good story behind the place. And so let's talk about that. Of course, I am Ed Branley. I am the NOLA History Guy. That's the best email to get a hold of me, as well as just at NOLA History Guy on all social media. So let's talk about the Arsenal now. This is the Boyd Cruz painting of the Arsenal on St. Peter. This is now our third pod, talking about the paintings of Boyd Cruz. Remember, we started the year with this idea we're going to do 4 week series, and this first 4 weeks is about Boyd Cruz paintings. So we chose the Arsenal mainly because his activity is a good bit different with all those military guys and everything, of course the building has a fascinating story. Here's our tour guide talking points. Shout out to the Friends of the Cabildo docents at the Cabildo, the Presbytery, the 1850 house, and then the walking tour guides. And here's your talking points if you're doing that kind of thing. The Arsenal is located directly behind the Cabildo. Its official name is the Old Louisiana State Armory. The Arsenal is American. It was built in 1839. It stands on the site of the old Spanish arsenal, which was built in 1762. Before the Spanish, the site was the French jail. Government buildings here near the St. Louis Church during the the French colonial days. The Spanish picked up and improved on that, and the story goes from there, as you'll see. The main entrance to the building, what Cruz painted, is on St. Peter's Street, but that in modern times, that entrance is closed down, and you can only access the Arsenal building by going around the corner to the Cabildo entrances. So this is, of course, the artist that created the painting is Boyd Cruz. He visualizes the Arsenal antebellum in the area of 1850. So the building was built in 1839. So you figure this is 11 to 15 years old. What he's visualizing is the building when it is 11 to 15 years old. All of the soldiers you see in the painting are of American soldiers, including the red coat, and we'll talk about that. The artist, Alvic Boyd Cruz. Yeah, this is our third in a series of 4 paintings of his that we're unpacking and deep diving. Cruz was born in 1909 in Cairns, Mississippi. His family packed up and moved to Lake Charles in 1918. 10 years later, he gets accepted as a student at the New Orleans School of Art in 1928, and pretty much becomes a New Orleanian at that point. He does get started after graduating from the New Orleans School of Art as a professional commercial artist doing commissions for different things. The Depression hits hard, of course, but the government steps in and lends a hand in a number of different areas. They didn't just build roads and Charity Hospital at the time. One of the programs that was started by the National Park Service was the Historic American Buildings Survey. And then there were artist and photography and writing projects that were sponsored that hired creatives, as we would call them now, for works progress administration projects. Cruz was commissioned for a number of these. The HAB surveys are interesting. A lot of Historic American Building surveys were architectural stuff, right? So it's black and white, really good. The photographers were top notch, really good architectural photography of various building sites. Then also architectural drawings and renderings that It's like, for example, the old Canal streetcar barn that was demolished after the closure of the Canal streetcar in 1964. You could take the building surveys for that and probably build the building again. Well, because you're looking to employ these artists like Cruz, the HAB surveys went a step further and they commissioned artists to paint the buildings as well as photographers because color photography was a bit expensive. Hire an artist and let him do a color watercolor, color oil painting of the building. Same thing with artists' projects for the WPA that tied to writers' projects and that kind of thing. Now, all of that kind of dries up at the beginning of World War II because the money gets redirected to the war effort, and so do the jobs. Cruz becomes a teacher at that point. He teaches art and painting at several schools up into the 50s and the 60s, including Newcomb College. Newcomb, of course, is or was the ladies' college of Tulane University, which is that concept's long gone, but yeah, it's still Newcomb College was part of Tulane, and Cruz taught there. He painted this painting in 1941. So this is still WPA money, as it were, because, of course, the war effort doesn't begin until we declare war in December of 1941. Cruz retires his last painting. We did a blog post on it. I'll put that in the show page of the BK House in 1962, and he passes away in 1988. So let's talk about some of the background of the arsenal before we jump back to the painting. So we'll start with the French colonial period. French colonial period, 1718 is the date we mark that as the founding of New Orleans. By 1820, the street plan, the survey plan for the French Quarter is laid out. Part of that in the early 1820s includes plans for a parish church. Now, at the time when the city begins, French colonial government operates initially from Fort St. Charles, which was the Fort St. Charles is the location of the old U.S. Mint, which is now the New Orleans Jazz Museum. Everybody, if you don't know the Mint, we'll have to do a decent pod on the Mint at some point. But anyway, so Fort St. Charles was where the government was, because basically the French army, French colonial troops, and was actually French naval the French Marines were the primary defense of the city. But the layout of the ultimate intention is for the church to be in the middle of the city, and that's where the parade ground and the church, what now is St. Louis Cathedral and Jackson Square, are in the middle. They're built away from the fort, which is on the eastern corner of the city. Civilian government moves away from the fort as well. The buildings are constructed. If you were looking that this parish church was there on Charter Street, if you're looking, this would be where St. Louis Cathedral is now, and if you were looking to the left in this view, that would be the Cabildo. And prior to during the French time, there were government buildings that were set up there, as well as the French colonial jail, which was built in that area right there, Charters and St. Peter's Streets. Moving into the Spanish colonial period. Now, in 1762, the Spanish take over the Louisiana Territory. The end of the 7 Years' War in Europe. France doesn't want the Protestant British to get a hold of all this territory, so they pass it to Catholic Spain, who then take over and set up the Spanish government. 1762, fast forward to 1803, Bonaparte takes the Louisiana Territory back from Spain, puts his brother on the Spanish throne. His brother gives it back to him. He then, in turn, sells it to the Americans, and that's the Louisiana Purchase that you read about in school and all of that kind of stuff. This is a painting of the transfer of authority, transfer of power from France to the United States in 1803. The treaties and everything were signed in D.C. and Paris, but the actual on the ground change of command, if you will, a change of authority, took place in the Place d'Armes. This isn't the fancy Jackson Square we know yet, because that's still a good 35 years away. You could see the buildings there, basically. So the Spanish officials had upgraded the municipal buildings behind the Plaza de Armas, or which the Spanish interpretation of Place d'Armes, or the parade ground. The French jail, which was behind the government buildings, the original Cabildo. That's the Cabildo we know now in this painting, but originally there was a government building called the Cabildo, and right behind it was the Spanish armory, the Spanish arsenal, and it was also, that's where the French jail was. So the Spanish continued to use it, and it became, they referred to it as the calabozo, or the jail. And Americans and French who didn't speak Spanish, they just became the calaboose. The Americans would just call it, yeah, we're taking you off to the calaboose, kind of, or you're going off to the calaboose. St. Louis Church, you saw the architectural rendering of the original French colonial church. That church burns in the 1788 fire. It's rebuilt as a cathedral in 1794, but that also burns down in the 1794 fire. So after 1794, the Spanish government commits to rebuilding the church, so that by this 1803 painting, you see that is what St. Louis Cathedral, and it's a cathedral now because the New Orleans becomes the seat of the Diocese of Louisiana and has a bishop, so that's a cathedral now. So that's the cathedral rebuilt after the fires, but not the cathedral that's there now. That's a whole nother story about construction and that kind of thing. The Cabildo, as you can see there on the left in this view, that is the Spanish seat of government that burned. Well, the original Cabildo burned in the 1794, well, in the 88 and 94 fires. That building that you see there was completed in 1799. So it really wasn't the building that we know as the Cabildo wasn't really the Spanish seat of government for all that long. You can see in this painting, the third floor and the cupola aren't there yet. It's a two-story, and this was the government building for the Spanish for that very brief transfer with the French, and then becomes the seat of government for the Louisiana Territory. And then in 1812, that becomes the seat or the capital for the state of Louisiana. The Calabozo and the Spanish Armory sit there and are pretty much, that's just behind the Cabildo, and they were used by the Americans, but the Americans weren't satisfied with the construction of the Spanish Armory. So by the 1830s, they're looking at tearing down that building behind the Cabildo. The Cabildo's fine. Cabildo was done very well. It was serving nicely as a government building for the Americans. But their decision was made, let's tear down the old armory and make the Louisiana State Armory. And this is an 1839 architectural painting of the proposal. This, green light, thumbs up, and let's build it. You can see, and we'll come back to the cruise painting, that some of those embellishments on top were not originally built. The building was designed as a three-story building originally, and I suspect cost had something to do with it, but the top didn't get added till later. So this is an 1839 architectural rendering of the Louisiana State Armory, better known as the Arsenal. Back to the Boyd Cruz painting. So here's Cruz's visualization of the arsenal in the 1850s. Now remember, it's built in 1839, so he's fast forwarding 11, 12, 13 years into the 1850s. The building doesn't change much. We look at a couple of more modern photos and everything, you'll see the view here doesn't change all that much. You can see at this time the Cabildo was still only 2 stories, and the arsenal was built in 1839 to match that. So by antebellum time, the city of New Orleans, the port is the second largest port in the nation. We're kind of a big deal, right? And so uh, city defense was fairly beefed up. You had forts in different locations, and then of course to the ultimate defense of the government was then established and set up here in the well, and continued, I should say, from the Spanish times, continued here in the Arsenal building. Let's zoom in a little bit because Cruz, of course, as we've seen in his other paintings and we've talked about, Cruz loves to put in activity into a painting. So think of it kind of like writers will do composite characters. He probably didn't see this much activity on one day, but he's visualizing things in front of the building. So this is a zoom in of the bottom of the painting. And you see the Belgian set stones that are, basically the paving for streets in the antebellum times, brought in from other locations, a lot of times used as ballast and then laid down as street paving. So we've got some soldiers, we've got some activity, we've got some soldiers, we've got a woman chatting up a soldier, and then we've got a young black boy sitting over on the right hand side. Let's break it down a little bit. The two mounted soldiers are likely cavalrymen. The one in the rear is a cavalry trooper on the brown horse, and the gentleman in the front is likely a cavalry officer. How do we know the difference? The trooper is wearing a white epaulette with a white shoulder epaulette, a white shoulder cord. So he's wearing cloth stuff. Look at his officer in front. Maybe he's an aide, a valet, a Batman kind of, for a senior officer, which clearly this gentleman is, with the full gold epaulettes and then all of his gold cords on the front of his uniform. And you can see his saddle. His saddle and mounted furniture are definitely, his saddle blanket, his saddle itself are definitely a better quality. A man of means. He's not using the government issue stuff that his aide, that his trooper are using. In the doorway, so we have the doorway open, indication maybe it's a little warm out. So they stepped outside just to see what's going on. We've got a couple of soldiers there wearing typical antebellum Union uniform style. I can't identify, and I apologize for that because it's not my thing. I studied a lot more European stuff in this period, so I could tell you what the British uniforms would have looked like, but I don't know if these guys are artillerymen or infantry, possibly artillery. There were cannon in the armory. You can see there's a wheel for a gun carriage there behind the door, and these guys are out for a breath of fresh air. To the right there, and you're going, huh? What's up with this guy? It's a red coat. Um, he's not British. He's not Canadian. He's American, but he's more than he's not. He's kind of sort of American Army. He's most likely state or city militia. At the time, there were a number of battalions that were raised as local militia, a very common thing. You had your soldiers, you had, you had regular army, regular cavalry troopers. You had the Washington Artillery, which was was an army unit at that point. But you also had the militia. You had the Orleans Artillery, the Orleans Rifles, the Crescent Rifles. The stories of them and moving into secession and the Civil War are fascinating. But the point to this is they're city and state militia. So they don't follow as much the customs and the regulations of the United States Army. So you can see here we have most likely, again, this would be a junior officer. Uh, yeah, he looks like he look because he's got a sword. He's a junior officer in one of these local militia battalions. And of course, well, he's a military guy, right? So he's hanging out and he's, conducting business in the arsenal as well. To the right, we've got a couple. And this is why I always say Boyd Cruz paintings are wonderful writing prompts. It's like, what are they talking about? Is she a lady? Is she a lady? Is she a lady? Is she a lady of the evening? Or is out on the street now? Whatever. She's talking to an enlisted man. You can see his uniform is similar to the two soldiers or artillerymen in the doorway. He's doffed his cap in conversation. Likely, well, I'd say likely she is a lady, but now you never know, right? You're showing respect one way or the other, so you get that idea. What are they talking about? I'm telling you, I want you guys to write things about this, bring it back. We'll figure out if we can maybe kind of develop a lit zine where we'll you write it and submit it. I can't pay you yet, but we'll back pay you if we can turn it into a money making thing. We'll figure it out. But anyway, so what are they talking about? You've got a lady on the street. She's walked by. She's passing by. Is she stopping to greet? It could be a brother for all we know, right? But, like I say, you write the story and go from there. Cruz loves to add children to his paintings. They're great to show scale. You've got the adults, and here so we've got cavalry officers that are higher up than the soldiers on foot and the lady in the picture. So you can see height there. And now you've got this young black boy sitting on the curb, basically en route St. Peter there in front of the side rear of the Cabildo. He is, of course, this is antebellum. He is, of course, going to be most likely an enslaved black kid, a kid of a family of a free family of color would most likely be in school, but an enslaved kid is going to have street hustles. It's like, his mom's at work in a household nearby, that kind of thing. She's enslaved as well. He's out either just hanging out and staying out of her way, or most likely he's got a street hustle or two going on as well. So we've got a lot of activity here. What's going on? Write it. Tell us. Even if you don't have a story. I'm not a writer. Go see us on Facebook. Go see us at the NOLA History Guy Facebook page. Shoot me an email. Tell me what these people are doing. Also, if you're a bit better at 1850s military uniforms, tell me what units these guys are. Fast forward a little bit to the 1930s. Okay, we've Cruz. This is Cruz's time, if you were doing these paintings of New Orleans. He would take photographs from contemporary photographs and then visualize them antebellum, that kind of thing. Here is a shot from the 1830s. looks like it's taken from the balcony of the building at Charters in St. Peter. That's now Tableau Restaurant. The Cabildo is there to the right. The Arsenal, you can see, is behind the Cabildo. The third floor of the Cabildo has been built out by now, and we don't see the cupola, but it's going to be there. So that building's been extended out. The Arsenal has not grown up in terms of its, well, one, two, yeah, that would no, because it connects on the third floor. So the third floor of the Arsenal is not there yet in this photo. Zoom back. This postcard, I dated this as the 1920s because it's one of these Detroit publishing photos, but it's really more likely going to be the 1940s. So I've got the period right here. I've got the order right, even though that I said 1920s, and now I'm talking. The more I think about it, because the third floor connector from the Cabildo to the Arsenal means that the Cabildo is built out, as we saw in that picture from the 30s, and we also see that the Arsenal is built out so that the connector ties all three floors. So that's the courtyard that the courtyard was always there. The open space was always there. If you go up to the Cabildo on the second floor, there's a mural of one of these postcards showing you the courtyard and the connector here back in those days, and it shows you the prison cells, because it was the armory, it was the arsenal. Of course, it was the calaboose before that. The Americans still use the Arsenal building as a lockup. Now, you've got parish prison and everything else, but after the Civil War, the Arsenal building was still used as a lockup. And folks come to the Cabildo, and of course, you guys know I'm a docent at the Cabildo, and every week or so I'll get that question: where are the prison cells? It's like, where are the dungeons, kind of thing. I love it. I love when people ask stuff like that, because it gets you a chance to tell them that yes, and then walk them around to the mural and show them, kind of what it did look like at the time. You can go walk out on that patio. We've got a modern shot we'll come to in a second. So here's the Arsenal today, and you can see that it's essentially unchanged, but the top has been built out. There's a third floor there. Like it originally was an extended attic, and now it's actually a third floor of the building up there. And you can see the embellishments in the 1839 architectural rendering actually now happened, but it's the Louisiana Armory building, right? So it was built out with the design at the top of the building on the front. There is the Louisiana Pelican, because this is a state building, not a federal building as such. Never was a federal building in that sense. Ironically, it is still a state building because it's part of the Louisiana State Museum. So the entrance, as you can see, go look back at the photos and the cruise painting. The entrance is essentially unchanged. You could still visualize those two soldiers just with the door propped open, hanging out, checking out the street. Although that pickup that you see there wouldn't have been there. This is a 2016 photo from a Wikimedia Commons contributor. Thank you very much, sir. Yair Haklai. Again, thank you for contributing to the Commons, and we acknowledge and salute all of you guys. Here's the Arsenal today. Okay, there was the front. That is out of frame to the left, basically. There is a connector tying just like you see the connector here, 3 stories tie the Cabildo on the right to the Arsenal building on the left. And then out of frame, you see that gas lamp there in the courtyard. And then there's another connector, another closed connector that ties the Cabildo back to the Arsenal building. And then, so basically you come in to the out of frame to the right, you come in through the Cabildo. You can walk through the Cabildo, and then where the photographer's me. You walk out of you can walk onto the courtyard from that connector, basically behind me to the right here, and then you can come in and you see there is, and if you come, you see the mural that's you come see the mural that's up on the second floor of the Cabildo. You'll see it's very similar in design. It's just that back in the 20s and 30s, there wasn't anything occupying. Now the museum, they've got a patio area here. You can sit, relax for a little bit. I always say go run and get a lucky dog. And you can't eat the lucky dog in the museum, but when you come in, they'll say sure, because you can walk that door you see right there toward the rear. That is right there by the front entrance of the ticket desk and everything, and the main entrance of the Cabildo Museum. Yeah, go get your lucky dog. Go get a little to go get a sandwich or something at Tableau, and then come sit out here on the patio and enjoy a little bit of a quick lunch, and then enjoy your tour of the Cabildo and the Arsenal. Walk around. So the Cabildo, of course, all exhibition space. The first floor has currently has the Botanica herbal plant healing exhibit. Second floor is all of the gut core Louisiana history, Battle of New Orleans, the early history of the colony and the state, history of the building, et cetera, on the second floor. The third floor, again, out of frame on the right, is currently a George Rodrigue, the Blue Dog guy, late great George Rodrigue. It's an exhibition of his paintings before Blue Dog. So a lot of his Acadiana, Cajun country paintings and that kind of thing. Gorgeous, fun stuff. Just go up and come visit. I'll talk your ear off about it if you come on over. Cut over to the Arsenal building, and which you can do from the crossover behind me, or you can take the elevator. That is, the crossover is all three floors, right? So what the first floor there you see with that arch on the left, in front, behind the tables. The first floor is exhibition space. Currently, it's an exhibition of the talking about Spanish governors during the Spanish colonial period. And then it talks about, because just about every Spanish governor from the colonial period has a street named after them. So it's, shows you Gayoso Street, shows you Ulloa Street, shows you Mare Street, and it's a fun little exhibit. It's really neat. Go up to the second floor, and that's an art exhibit of the works of some of the works of Clementine Hunter. And then the third floor is educational and meeting space. The third floor has been converted into a meeting classroom area. Here's Mark Bologna from Beyond Bourbon Street. Mark came to speak to the FOC Tour Guides monthly meeting last November. And you can see this is the third floor of the Arsenal building. And it's set up for meetings and classes of the tour guide class in March. You want to be a tour guide? Ping me. I'll put stuff up again. The Friends of the Tour Guide walking tour guide class begins in March after Mardi Gras, and the FOC are recruiting, looking for a few good folks, or as many good folks as we can get, to bolster the ranks that do the Friends of the Cabildo walking tours, which are very highly praised and everything else. Mark Bologna, fellow Brother Martin Crusader. Got to throw in got to be a homer. I'm sorry, guys. But anyway, Mark is the host of the Beyond Bourbon Street podcast, which we'll put that on the show page as well. You gotta hear, you gotta be listening to Mark's podcast. It's wonderful. He's also talking about and holding a copy of his book Beyond Bourbon Street, which he was, pitched the book. Actually, publisher came to him to do a travel guide on New Orleans because of the success of the pod. It's that good. Well, anyway, we were all up in November in for the FOC meeting, and Mark was the guest speaker. And you can see you've got the fancy, uh, got all the AV stuff and everything else, and Mark's just talking at this point, and it was really fun talking. Really good meeting space, which I believe can be rented. Don't ping me back on that. I know you can rent the Cabildo for things like wedding receptions and corporate parties and that kind of thing. There's all kinds of possibilities for private events. Ping me, I'll hook you up. I don't, I know the history. I don't know the business of it, but we'll definitely, we'll hook you up with the LSM folks who handle all of that. Greetings from NOLA. It's a little chilly this week. It's supposed to get colder next week, but greetings specifically here from the channel. This is a mural. The folks are they're called Greetings Tour, and you can see on the mural itself it says at Greetings Tour. That's their Insta, and then greetingstour.com. This is a group of folks that basically go around. They went around in an RV and they painted murals of different cities that had the old Kirk type postcards from the 30s and 40s. Greetings from New York City. Greetings from Atlantic City, New Jersey. Greetings from Tallahassee, Florida. And of course, there was a Kirk type greetings from New Orleans as well. They visualized it now like we all do, to say NOLA. Made a modern mural in the style of the Kirk type the Kirk Tyke postcards. I just love this mural, so I've incorporated just kind of it as part of all of my presentations now. You can see the Mardi Gras mask in the cathedral in the end, then the quarter and a jazz combo looking back into the CBD, continuing that with a trumpeter and some carnival beads on the L, and then a tray of crawfish like you'd get just about any place that sells boiled crawfish with the Superdome, and then the Saints Fleur de Lis up there. Greetingstour.com. Go check these folks out. It's just beautiful stuff. A word from your sponsor. Hey, buy my books. Yeah, seriously, those are my four. The sepia tone covers are my four books in the Arcadia Publishing Images of America series. The olive tone book with all those wonderful people from New Orleans history is the Legendary Locals of New Orleans. It's another Arcadia imprint. There's a Legendary Locals of Metairie too by Catherine Campanella. So yeah, go get both of them. This is my most recent book, which, God, I got to get off my butt, right? Because this was in 17. Krause, the New Orleans Value Store, tells the story of Krause Department Store tells you a ton of stuff, tying back into Canal Street retailing, Jewish retailing, the Jewish community. And because it's there at Canal and Basin Streets, it is the corner of Storyville. Shout out to Erica and Klaus at the Storyville Museum, which will be doing a full-blown pod on them. Now that I've been over there, they were gracious enough to have us in this week at the museum with the Friends of the Cabildo guides, and just wonderful to meet you both. And I mentioned you guys in the Storyville Museum because the Krause book has a chapter on Storyville. Why? Because it's at the corner. Technically, Storyville's behind the store, but you get the idea. Thanks again, Klaus and Erica, for having us in. It was just wonderful. That's me again, Edward Branley, the NOLA History Guy, at NOLA History Guy on all the social media, Blue Sky, NOLA History Guy on Insta. It's NOLA History Guy is the Facebook page. The Facebook group is New Orleans Uncovered, and then the website, of course, which best when I say have the show page. If you got here from another way, come see it because we've got the PDF. We've got the PDF of this, the video of this that we send up to YouTube, everything else for all of the podcasts as we go. Shout out to the folks who created this a parchment style old document PowerPoint template that I have just loved for years and years and years. It's Creative Commons, share alike, and we definitely love them, these folks, and give them credit for it. That's about it. We'll see you for our fourth Boyd Cruz painting next week.